What's up, everybody? It's DisThunder. First, I need to apologize for the tardiness of my review here. I've had some stuff going on at home. Nothing awful, but just a little concerning. So, been dealing with that. Things hopefully should resolve here soon. So, no, that's not much of an excuse, but I just wanted to clear that up so people didn't think I was dragging my feet on purpose. I feel like it's important to mention that because this particular set in front of me, which is, of course, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 112 Collective box set by Mezco Toys, is probably the most fun I've had with a box set or a multi-pack, and maybe possibly figure in general in a long time. If these have been individual releases, I think it would have been almost an instantaneous release filled with a whole bunch of anxiety over waiting for the next figure to drop. Having them all together like this, though, it's kind of a lot to digest, if you can believe that. So even if things weren't so hectic around here right now, I still think this review probably would have taken me a while. So like with Snake Eyes, there's probably not a lot of reason for me to go into like a backstory on the Ninja Turtles. I think everybody's pretty familiar, especially if you're under the age of 50 and over the age of about 5. You've got a pretty good idea of who the Turtles are. Instead, though, if it's okay, I wouldn't mind talking a little bit about my personal history with the Turtles, because I like to think of myself as being sort of an early adopter. I got my first Turtles figures in, I want to say that would be in Christmas time of '87. And I got the original 4 with the squishy heads, and then subsequently during that next year, I think I got the Turtle Lair playset, I got the Mutant Module, I got the Party Wagon. Never did get a Technodrome, which is why 30 years later I had to correct that. But unlike a lot of kids my age, I feel like I was already pretty familiar with the Turtles before I saw the cartoon. A lot of that was due to like the bio cards on the back of the card backs. It was not due to the comics. I didn't learn about them until well after the TV show had been on for a bit. And let me just tell you right now, just full disclosure here, if you haven't read those original Turtles comics in a while, you absolutely need to do so. I think IDW's released them a few times now. There's colorized versions, which are even better than the classics, in my opinion. But all the subtle political socio-satire that was done so perfectly that went right over my head at, age 6 and 7, is still hilarious today. And it's absolutely worth rereading, especially if it's been a little bit. Getting back to my personal experience with the Turtles, I feel like I was still in it until about probably the early to mid-90s, which is kind of when most of my generation kind of fell out of it. But I was kind of drawn back in when the 2003 series began. Didn't buy a lot of figures, but I actually really liked that cartoon. And then, like everybody else, kind of tapered off. When they got into CGI stuff, I wasn't really into it. And then, honestly, in recent years, I've kind of revisited the 2012-2013 series, and found that to have been something I really probably should have watched at the time, because it really holds up. And I think that's the coolest thing about Turtles is every generation gets their own version, and even if it doesn't feel like it's for you at the time, you come back to it a few years later and you're like, oh, this is for me. This still works. So it's constantly refreshing, but as long as the series is good, as long as they stick to, the basic fundamentals, I think Turtles can go on indefinitely. That being said, it would be hypocritical if I didn't mention I haven't watched Mutant Mayhem yet, because I think it's usually the same thing. It's the aesthetics that will occasionally throw me off of a new Turtles series. But I'm sure I will eventually, and it's probably not half bad. It's just going to take me 2 years to get around to it and go, oh, pretty good. So with a little bit of backstory having eaten up some runtime, let's talk about the individual Turtles themselves, starting with Leonardo. I didn't realize that each turtle had its own kind of unique build, where they might share some parts here and there, but like their height, their build, their colorations are all unique. Leonardo makes for, I would say, probably the most medium, the most well-rounded build of all 4 turtles. He is not as tall as Donnie, but he's not quite as big as Raph. And see, now where Donnie is a little bit taller, but he's slimmer. Leo and Donnie both make use of that pleather full strap gear, where they have the shoulder strap that attaches to the belt. And as you might have noticed here, each belt actually has some space to carry either some kunai or some daggers or some throwing stars. As I mentioned, Donnie's the tallest of the 3, and then Raph is the bulkiest of the 3. He's got the biggest arms and legs. I did make one subtle adjustment to Raph. I have to mention it since I'm doing it on the 360 here and you might notice it. I changed the angle of his side holsters just a little bit. I kicked them out so they're at a more like a 45-degree angle. That way they don't get hit by his tops of his thighs when he's moving. And then Mikey is probably this, he's kind of the second slimmest and also the shortest. But he has a little bit more mass than Donnie. And just like everybody else, despite my best efforts, you can see Mikey's kind of low riding his belt here. That might be the only thing that is slightly irritating about these pleather belts, is that on Raph and Mikey, they don't stay in place on their own. You have to kind of sometimes self-adjust them. We'll use Raph to demonstrate articulation because they all essentially have the exact same articulation. They all have these elastic knee and elbow pads that just ride in between the joint there, and they don't really get in the way, and they do allow you to, you can obviously take them off if you don't want them, but you can also pivot them if they are in your way. And see, that's what I'm talking about with the belts. It's there's just not quite a natural place on that shell due to the shape for it to rest. So, I mean, nothing a little bit of glue or blue tack wouldn't fix, of course. So you have a double jointed neck. You have a ball joint at the top, which allows for a really good range of motion and pivot. And then when we pop that off, you can see the small ball socket there. And then there is a secondary joint that goes into the collar. You have an actually surprisingly nice range on a shoulder. You can go out actually past that 90 degrees. He's got a bicep tilt, or bicep cut, and then double jointed elbows. And actually really expressive wrist joints with a lot of range in them. Now, if we come around to the fingers here, you can see that they're obviously 3 fingers, but there is a little bit of pliability to them, so they can hold different accessories, but you have lots of hand options to get that fine tuning. If we come in a little closer, you can see that there is an upper torso joint hidden behind the shell, and there's actually a lower torso joint. I'm going to move the belt so you can see it just above the hip joint that allows for a little bit of subtle movement in and out. Obviously, there's not enough for much twist due to just the nature of the design, but it does allow for a little more range with the hips, actually. It kind of helps with that. There is that ball-jointed hip. Forward range is actually really good. The shell is flexible, so it'll even get out of the way a little more than that if you want to, past 90 degrees. Out's obviously great. And then a double-jointed knee that depends a little bit on which turtle you're posing for how big like the thighs and the back of the shins are. For the feet, he has a ball socket joint, which actually I was expecting like a forward-facing pin like a Legends figure. But as a result of that ball joint, he is incredibly sturdy. As long as you get one of those giant feet planted, he will hold a pose just about any way you want. And as I mentioned earlier on Raph, I did change the position of the side holsters. All I did is take a thread out of the bottom and then pivot them and then re-glued them in place. That'll keep it from scratching like the top of the thighs. And now we're on to the most important part for me, which is the scale comparisons, because this has been the most frustrating thing for me with turtles is we're in a freaking turtle figure renaissance, and I had yet to get the ones that were the scale I was looking for until now. So here you have a 2012 Mauser, a Loyal Subjects Krang, who is actually a really good figure, by the way, my custom shredder, and Raph. And this is the scale that I was looking for. This is exactly what I was wanting. And to drive that further home, this is actually the KO version of the original 4 Horsemen NECA Turtles, because they actually held up better than my originals. The Mezco Leo, IDW Leo, and Super 7 Leo. And it would be easy to kind of say, oh, well, they all fill a different role in your collection, and that's not untrue. But I kind of feel like now that I've got the style and the scale I wanted the Mezcos, I'm probably going to put a couple of these other ones away. The Super 7 one surprised me a little bit, though, because having these two side by side, I realized, the Super 7 is still a little too big for me. I wish I had a little more articulation. But the style of them is unique, and it's very toyetic, and it's also 4 Horsemen. So it's like, I'll probably hang on to these a little bit longer, at least until Mezco solicits another style of Turtle 4-pack, and then I need the money like everybody else, and they go on eBay. But speaking of the Super 7 stuff, I think their Bebop and Rocksteady style and scale-wise look really good with these turtles. If Mezco were to continue on a Turtles line, which it kind of feels like they might, Casey Jones obviously is in the works, this style and this scale would be what I would be after. For now, I think this is a pretty good pairing. God knows I'd love to find some cloth goods to put on those guys to make them match aesthetically a little bit better, but even without them, this is a good set. And then, of course, here's Leo and Raph with Supreme Knight Batman, which is the crossover I've been having in the backyard for the better part of 35 years, and now I can do it, and it looks good. And again, the style of these Mezco turtles lends itself so well to everything else Mezco. It's like they were kind of quite literally made for me. This is what I've been waiting for. This is exactly what I was after. It's even bad enough you might have noticed my other Batman I shared with you earlier in the pictures has a pleather belt that matches them. Here's a quick look at all 12 heads that are included with the figures. I'm not going to actually go too far into accessories just because we're a little short on time. I try to keep these run times around 15 minutes. And honestly, if you're curious about the loadouts, it's not hard to look on Mezco's own solicits and see what they're all included. Suffice to say, it is a lot of stuff. The turtle communicators are awesome, and these heads are awesome. There is also 2 interchangeable bandanas with each figure, a long and a short, that you can swap in between, obviously, different heads to give it a slightly different look or a slightly more action motion pose. I do want to take a second, though, and go over the turtles and their soft goods, though, because whereas Mezco could have pretty easily just thrown 4 trench coats and 4 hats in there and called it a day, and I would have been ecstatic, they actually went to the trouble of making them unique soft goods for each character. And in a box filled with weapons and kunai and daggers and slash effects, it's easy to overlook these. And I don't think you should, because they're actually really cool. Here's a closer look at Mikey and Raph. Raph, of course, has the trademark trench coat and hat. Mikey's got a hooded jacket. And I've got Mikey with my favorite of his kind of personalized accessories, which is his Walkman. Like the pleather belts, I think the attention to detail, like you can see the buttons on Raph's jacket, you can see the drawstrings on Mikey's hoodie. There's a lot of attention to detail that went into these soft goods. And yeah, like I said before, don't sleep on them. It's a pretty cool inclusion. Here you've got Leo and Donnie with their cloaks. And I will be honest here, though. I think Donnie's got the cooler cloak because I think I like the color better. And it also has kind of this beaked top to it, so it hides his face a little bit better. But, I mean, they're both awesome inclusions. And, again, they're just that. They're inclusions. I've also got I've got Donnie with my favorite of his personal accessories, which is his wrist gauntlet / communicator / weapon / in this case, I'm using it like a multi-tool. And this thing is just perfect for a character like Donatello. I didn't include him in the size comparisons because I knew I had a shot of him here for later. That is the NECA movie Splinter with these turtles. And for right now, I'd say he's my go-to to scale with these guys. Again, if Mezco decides to go deeper, I'm sure their Splinter would work even better, but we'll get to that in time, I'm sure. So as I try to coalesce this kind of disjointed love fest that's kind of cosplaying as a review, I guess I might use my influence, such as it is, whatever influence I have, maybe instead of just telling you how amazing these figures are, because I think it's pretty obvious at this point how much I love this set and how much this has fulfilled like almost a lifelong need for good quality Ninja Turtles that fit my scale. I think I'm going to push for the opportunity instead. I think, specifically looking at Mezco, you guys, hopefully you see my reviews once in a while, you guys are sitting on a gold mine with these turtle bodies. With different shells and different accessories and different heads, I think you could reach across a lot of different styles and era of turtles and still be able to get more mileage out of essentially very unique sculpts and unique bucks. I think with changing shells and heads, you could probably get something a little akin to the Jim Henson Turtles. Maybe not exactly, but you could do something like, maybe say more Injustice style, if that makes sense, like if you want a more realistic turtle with pupils. Or you could pretty easily go into the IDW style, like the newer, I think, what was that, the late 2019-ish, 2020 era of Turtles. And that's just more stylized heads more than anything else. You could probably reach into any particular previous iteration and kind of pull from that and use these bodies to kind of sell it, with the exception of Rise. Rise is kind of unique in terms of bodies and styles, and it doesn't quite gel with previous Turtle iterations like a lot of the other ones do. I think there's also a golden opportunity for more accessories, like, again, you know, you could do trench coats, you could do bomber jackets and sunglasses. I mean, who doesn't love that look? And really all manner of goofy and fun disguises and things. It's a shame that they don't have the Star Trek license anymore, because I think I'd probably buy a 4-pack of Trekkie Turtles, and I don't even like Star Trek that much. So it's kind of goofy to be in a review and be telling you how amazing a box set is and how amazing a set of figures is, and then go off on a tangent about all the other stuff you want. But if you know me, if you watch some of my videos, you understand this is what happens when I get something really good. I want more. I want more instantly. Like, it doesn't even matter that I got all 4 turtles in one shot and it's like it's a complete collection already out of the box. I need more. These are too much damn fun. And where this box set definitely sold faster than some people were expecting, I tried to warn you guys. I know Darius tried to warn you guys. We all tried to warn you guys. These were going to be something special, but you know, not sometimes you just don't want to hear it. And I get it, but I do feel bad for you anyway. And I hope that there's an opportunity like the ones I've described here to get more turtles out for you guys, because I will also buy them. And that's really the only slightly negative thing I can say about these guys is, unfortunately, if you didn't get in on them and you're not sitting on a box set as we speak, and they're not sitting next to you on the couch, you're going to be paying some pretty hefty secondary market to get them. And for now, all we can do is hope for, you know, a re-release, or, you know, these ideas I'm throwing out there for a secondary release to kind of correct that. And you guys have to promise Mezco that you won't sleep on stuff next time, and you'll get your pre-order in, right? That'll help. I'm pretty sure that'll help him sell this idea. So with all that being said, and still trying to keep this somewhat truncated for the sake of time and brevity, I'm going to go ahead and call this done. First and foremost, thank you to Mezco Toys for creating something truly enjoyable at a time when I could really use the distraction, and it has been fantastic. And likewise, I hope I was able to offer you guys a little bit of distraction, a little bit of fun, and maybe a little bit of information if for some inexplicable reason you weren't sold on this set already. Or maybe sell you on my cool idea of making more turtles. I don't know. But thanks to everybody. Thanks for watching, and I will see you again shortly for the next review.